Hello everyone, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how to use Circuitmaker, kind of explain what it is, and this will just be the introduction video. So I'll be talking kind of about the difference between what a schematic and a PCB are, what the different packaging types of components are, as well as kind of how to start with a project on Circuitmaker. So this is Circuitmaker right here. I have it open and I'll be showing you how to create a project, but first I want to explain the difference between what a schematic and a PCB is, because I think it's important to know what the difference is for something like that. So a schematic is something that an engineer uses, and they use it to see what the different connections between a part are. So here's an example of a schematic. This is a buck converter, and it's basically displaying which pins of the buck converter are connected to which types of components. And it's kind of just like an overview of what is connected to what. So an engineer looks at this and sees, the input's connected to pin 1, the output's connected to pin 2, you've got some inductors and capacitors, many of which are connected to ground, and all the connections in this circuit are connected in such and such a way. So if I were to ask you, or if I wanted to reference back to what the design is that you're making, you would show me the schematic, because the schematic is a very readable way that shows what is connected to what. Now a PCB is a schematic that's been brought into the real world. So let's see if I can find a good picture. Um, so using a schematic, you're able to tell the Circuitmaker software, whichever software you're using, connect pin where is it? Connect pin 1 to this capacitor and connect that to ground. And then when you turn Circuitmaker into your PCB editor, it knows what's connected to what, helps you route it. So here's an example of a PCB. The person who designed this had to tell the computer that connect this pin of the IC to whatever this ends up being connected to and stuff like that. So just understand the difference. A schematic is for humans and engineers to look at and reference. A PCB is the real world layout of your schematic. Okay, now let's talk about packaging and package types. So a lot of different components have different types of packaging. And what I mean by packaging is they'll look different. Um, many different circuits and integrated circuits come in the same type of package. You don't want to have different packages for uh, every type of integrated circuit that you're using. So there's kind of a common set of them. And here's an image. So maybe let's start with this. So resistors and capacitors, common two-terminal passive components, follow this kind of guideline. You can see here there's the metric code and the imperial code, and then this is kind of the relative size of each of them. And so the bigger the code, the bigger the device. And this is kind of the footprint. This is how big your, whatever this might be, a resistor is. So if I said I'm using a 6332 resistor, you'd know it's this size if I was talking about metric. Or maybe I was using imperial, I called it a 2512. Generally, I like to use the metric because it makes more sense to me. Um, so when I say 2012, I know it's a 20 millimeter by 12 millimeter size. In imperial code, which is in mils, um, it'd be a 0805, 08 mils by 5 mils, which is 8 thousandths of an inch by 5 thousandths of an inch. I don't know why they didn't call them thous. That's why I don't like imperial, among other reasons. But that's just how it is. So you can reference the same packaging size in metric and imperial, but it's the same thing if it's on this chart. And the same is true for integrated circuits. So you can see there's kind of little clusters. A lot of things that have these 3 terminals come in various different sizes, or that have many terminals. And when I say terminals, I mean like these little metal connections that will actually attach to your PCB that you're designing. And so this is just a common thing I'm trying to say. If there's a part, you have to know what the packaging is, because when you go from your schematic to your PCB, it's important to have the right layout for the particular chip that you ended up buying, for example. Alright, the last thing I want to talk about is kind of what Git is. So if you've ever used GitHub, you kind of probably know what Git is already, but essentially what it is it's a way to organize various computer files and manipulate them being uploaded and pulled from the cloud. So this little visualization, um, you have some file on your computer and you can use a service called Git to take that file and upload it to the cloud, and then any other devices can access that file by pulling it from the cloud. And so you use various commits to send it up to the cloud and pulls to pull it down from the cloud. Um, it's important to know what this means because Circuitmaker relies on a very similar kind of ideology of how it um, saves your different circuits and things you're working on. So you may have your circuit and you're saving it, but it's only saved on a local level until you commit it. And when you commit it, it uploads itself to the cloud, and it's saved up there. So it's not really truly saved until you've committed it. So just know that going into it, and I'll talk about that later on. So that's kind of my introduction. Let's start just by creating a project on Circuitmaker. So when you enter the screen, it'll look something like this. In your Projects tab, we're going to create a new project. It'll prompt you for a name and whether you want it to be a public project or a sandbox project. Let's just call this buck because we're going to be making a buck converter. This is a buck converter. So that's our little description. And then hit save. That'll create the project for you. It'll prompt you if you want to change the URL name or add an image or anything like that. We're not going to worry about that too much. We'll just say save. And now I'm here at the project page, and anytime I change the project or upload photos or people look at my project and comment on it, this is where I can see it. Let's go back to home here. This is where we started. Now if we go to my projects, you can see that Buck is one of my projects. And if I click on it, it'll open up this page again. And if I open the design, it will populate this sidebar here, this project sidebar. And you can see I don't have any documents there now because I don't have anything inside of there. If you don't see this Projects tab, go to the View ribbon right here and be sure to click Projects, just like that. Alright, that concludes this first video. In the next one, I'll talk about kind of what a schematic is in depth, and I'll kind of go through designing our buck converter schematic.